Okay, Mr. Chair, you may proceed.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mark Grimes. The clerk has confirmed we have quorum. I'd like to call meeting 14 of the Board of Governors Exhibition Place to order. This meeting is held by using the city's WebEx technology with members of staff connecting by video conference or calling in. We ask for your patience. Just a few reminders. Staff, please keep video turned off until you need to speak or answer questions. This makes it easy for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate.
Can't hear you, Counselor. Mark, I can't hear you.
Debate on each item. Hello?
Now we got you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, no.
Okay, Peter, can you put your mic on mute, please, for a second? And Don, can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, it's Carol here. I just want to let you know you did cut out for a while. Your video is a bit choppy, so maybe if you turn your video off, we'll be able to hear you better.
I'll turn my video off for a sec, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Members, if you speak on
Still not hearing.
Still not hearing.
an item, make sure you're. Oh, not good. How about now? You hear me, Tess? Okay.
Yeah.
Although we're remotely members, you must still submit your motions writing to the clerk. The clerk staff are available at email at epb@toronto.ca. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the committee would like to acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act?
No.
If you have an interest, please raise your hand and unmute your mic. Next, we need a motion to confirm the minutes from the special regular meeting held on September 18th, 2020. Moved by Tess, all in favor. Opposed, carried. We will now go through the agenda. EP 14.1, 2021 proposed capital works budget as part of the 10-year 2021-2030 program.
Hold.
Hold. $14.2, 2021 operating budget.
Hold.
$14.3, Withrow Common, formerly Queen Elizabeth Executive Office lease. Moved by Mr. Leon, all in favor. Opposed, carried. 14.4, chiller replacement at Enercare Center. Moved by Mr. Lickman, all in favor. Opposed, carried. And 14.5, Exhibition Place Hotel X Development Phase 2 Lands Design Concept. We have a presentation on that. Also, here.
Hi, it's Mary Gallatley, Parkdale Legal Services.
Okay, Carol, can you put the new business on the screen for me, please?
It's coming up now.
Thank you. There we have it. The new business to add additional item to the agenda. Staff prepared the presentation on Exhibition Place recovery and reopening. We'll hear that at the end. All in favor of adding the agenda? Opposed? That carries. So we'll go to our first item, 14.1. Proposed capital works budget as part of the 10-year 2021-2030 program. Mr. Leon, you held the item. Questions of staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Under the state of health and good repair, may I ask why there are so many items that are dated 20 to 30 years or older relative to state of good repair? This seems a lot further out than what one would be most comfortable with.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the capital budget is a work in progress. During this COVID period, we've actually had to reduce to fit in with the financial constraints that the city has currently, and moving forward. And so this is a fairly standard capital project. Given the phase 1 master plan we've just completed, staff over this next year will be looking at that capital budget to set up those priorities that connectivity to local communities, investment in sort of pedestrian friendly aspects within the grounds. And so this is a work in progress.
So are we catching up? Have we fallen behind or what?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think there's a significant backlog. I can't remember the exact number. I think it's somewhere in like 30 or maybe to $50 million in backlog. So have we fallen behind? I think municipalities in general, given the fact of the the support from both federal and provincial governments, has been challenging over the years, and so we're definitely in an infrastructure deficit. Currently, it's $38 million. But one of the things that we've spent a lot of time, and particularly through this period of COVID, is really focusing on the grounds and the business. And in the last 10 years, we've provided back to the City of Toronto just under $50 million, $20 million outside of just loans that we've returned to the city. So we need to take those dollars when we have excess like we have in the last 10 years and reinvest them. And we're going to be looking at a capital plan that does just that moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I think that's the answer I was looking to hear, and I think you're getting on top of it, Don, and taking a fresh look at it, if I get that right. My next question is item 2E, and it's the curb stop replacement that are 80 years old. And if these repairs are done, will that create savings in our insurance costs and things like that? Can't hear anybody.
Yes, through the chair. Getting those types of things down will certainly provide us a better record moving forward with it. And many of these items are actually pointed out through our annual reviews with our insurance adjusters. And so this is work that actually is being earmarked to help reduce costs both currently and future.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was hoping to hear. My next question focuses on the fountains and the West Bailey Bridge. And the repairs to these are rather extensive and perhaps delayed. And in looking it over, I'm wondering if it's possible that we could look at sponsorship for these items. I don't say all of them, but maybe some of them, because of the whatever his arrangements were put in place at the time. But I think if we were able to find sponsors for these, that would underwrite some of the costs of repairs and go towards that kind of maintenance. Would that be a possible idea that's worth taking under consideration or a good look at by staff?
We definitely could look at that. I mean, the sensitivity towards the commercialization of this site and the historic nature of it is always a fine balance, but we're definitely looking at ways that we could monetize existing attributes of the site as we move forward, and that is something that could be certainly considered. Yeah, that is also used, that bridge is also used, and we do a lot of event banner hanging from that. That sponsors a bunch of different activities throughout the year. And so, and it's a source of revenue for us currently.
Peter, get on mute. Peter, get on mute.
How am I now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. Don, if the West Bailey Bridge, you say, is generating income for us with those banners we put across it?
That is correct. That is a charge that we charge out to all the shows, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Do you think we could look then at some sponsorship considerations for the fountains and look into that as a staff project and go forward from there and come back to us?
Currently, that is against the city bylaw and not permitted. And so we definitely have to look at that. But I think the general sense of what you're getting is we're cognizant of the facilities that we have within the grounds and the events taking place. So we need to look at every opportunity. And that was one of the ideas why we took the static billboards with branded cities along Lakeshore and looked at converting it to an LED, which would increase our annual revenue by in the area of $400,000 a year. And so we're looking at all those because during COVID, if there's been one thing consistent is those revenues have been the source of keeping us going throughout this period. I mean, we've pivoted and we now have the Intercare completely sold out with film production throughout in our grounds for base camps for many of the film productions. But certainly we're looking at that. We know we have to expand our revenue base and in a consistent revenue base, but do it in a very sensitive manner that respects the culture and heritage of the site.
Okay, well then, do you want a motion later on to look at this? I've prepared one, but
yeah, I don't think it's necessary because I think it's part of our work. And when you get the strategic plan, you're going to see it within our strategic plan, and that will be one of the areas in there that we're looking at.
If that's under consideration, I'm willing to go with it. Stuart, I don't know if we're going to talk about the Garden of the Greek Gods relocation today, are we?
No.
Okay, I'll leave that alone then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Please do unmute now, Peter. Thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, I'll move the recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving right along. Bear with me. 14.2, 2021 operating budget. Mr. Leon, you held the item. Questions of staff?
Wow, I'm sorry to be asking all the questions on all this stuff. However, here we go. Mr. Chairman, as I begin my question, I want to say that a lot of work has gone into this and a good job to bring in a budget with a 0% increase. Certainly not an easy chore today. So starting along that line, can loans written at 5%, and I'm a new board member, so I have to ask a stupid question.
Reference all the collects out. I'm okay with it.
Can you hear me okay?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can you repeat that question, Peter?
Yeah. Well, I was making a comment about bringing in the budget at 0% increase, and I think that's a real compliment to the staff. However, I'd like to ask a couple of questions relating to the operating budget.
Right.
Can loans be written, and this is my first budget with the exhibition, so this is all new to me, so I have to ask a few questions. Can loans be written at that are currently written at 5% be paid off and rewritten at a lower rate, given the lower rates of interest out there today, where you can re-borrow money, or are we mandated to borrow the money through the city and follow through with these arrangements?
There are two kinds of loan that exhibition place have, Mr. Chair. The bulk of the loan is for the loan on the Beanfield Center to retrofit the building in 2009. And that loan is through the City of Toronto at a fixed rate, very low. Most of the other loans are energy loans from Federation of Canadian Municipality or through the city. And they are already at 0 interest rate or very low interest rate already. So, and part of the loan agreement in terms of the covenants is they are not can be renegotiated. However, if we have excess cash, we can certainly pay down the loan.
The excess cash could be a little difficult, I know. But so the 5% loans that we have can't be refinanced at today's current lower rates at all then?
Part of the loan agreement, no.
Okay, I
Well,
understand, I
on the
understand that.
summer side, Mr. Chair, I mean, you get protection if the rate was to go up, you're still locked in at 5%.
I know that. Well, just I want to take advantage if I can, but I think I understand the answer. On page 44 of the operations budget, we show the operating budget is 0% overall for Exhibition Place, but then why is Beanfield at a 2% increase? There are considerable, yeah. And saying that, yes, go ahead.
Yes, the Beanfield is at a 2% because that's based on the history of the Beanfield. That's the kind of increase we see, and it's not as large as the Exhibition Place and the care program. And the mix of business also is different in the Beanfield Center. It focuses more on conventions and meetings and shows and galas.
Yeah.
Okay, so would that explain why then the housekeeping and the sales and marketing and the event services have no notes in the explanation?
Yes, very much so, yes.
Oh, okay, I can understand that. Okay, thank you. Then on page 49, of it, and this is a general question, what is the concierge service that we offer under Beanfield?
The concierge services, we go outside through with an RFP and we hire concierge service. And right now it's a company called BBW to provide when we have events front desk. So you have a live person when you come in. So if you have any questions or you need directions or whatever, rather than using our own internal security, we just bring in concierge service and they dress in a certain manner and, very professional. And it's typical when we have high-end events in the building.
Okay, thanks. All right. Now, in 1940, this current year, we had $4,900 in the budget for concierge services. However, we have $58,000 for 2021 forecasted. How realistic is that?
Mr. Chair, it's very realistic. The budget in 2020, I'd assume a normal year, a full year, and over the years we've been growing our events in that building. However, because of the pandemic, nothing's really happening right now, and it's likely not to have much happening between now and December. So our forecast is only 4,900, but in 2021, we are assuming we're back to normalcy, and that's why the budget represents a full year cost.
Okay, thank you. I can understand that one, and thank you very much for the clarification. The last one is on page 54, event services. If COVID is going to go into 2021, why are we showing increases of 5% salaries under event services and benefits and 10% for administration fees? Under event services on page 54, we're showing a 5% increase for salaries and benefits and a 10% increase for administration fees.
The
no
increases, through you, Mr. Chair, this budget provided for a 0% COLA and no financial rewards. The reason you have a 5% increase is because of new staff coming on board earlier this year. So that's why the increase is there. In terms of the 10% increase in the admin fees, that was provided assuming a normal year in 2021 and more events. Like every year, the events keep growing in that building. The trend line is up, and that's why that was there. Probably in the new year, we have recently got new direction from the city manager's office to resubmit our budget based on the pandemic situation continuing. So when this budget was done, it was based really on preliminary directions and guidelines, which was the same principle as the prior year, that is stay with the status quo with a zero change budget year over year. But as the report indicated, subject to changes. Now, given that the pandemic situation has continued and likely to continue in 2021, only last Thursday we had a conversation with the financial planning department in the city manager office and they're providing new direction. So this budget is likely going to change, and staff are looking to bring back an amended budget, 2021 operating budget in the first quarter of 2021. Given that the pandemic situation has continued, and we're not going to be back to normalcy in a hurry, we will reforecast, because right now we are experiencing, Mr. Chair, a number of cancellations in early 2021. And if the pandemic situation continues as is, we could see our tenants' operation also still being closed. So while this budget was done on that basis, again, it was a preliminary budget subject to changes, and staff will be bringing back in Q1 2021 a revised submission that we'll work with the city on.
Then I'll hold back on that until we see the amended budget, okay, Hardad? No doubt,
Okay.
if the new staff was hired or anyone like that, to get that by you and Don, I would think it had to go through a lot of scrutiny. So thank you for explaining that. And my last question, Mr. Chair, through you, is that throughout the operating budget, I see hourly wages and benefits running anywhere from 3% to 7%. Why is this so high in this time that we're in and reduced time for staff working and everything else? Why are we seeing the 3 to 7% in the hourly wages and benefits consistently throughout the operating budget? Do you have any answer for me on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the increases you're seeing between 3 and 7% is not is a reflection of two things. One is the collective bargaining agreement calls for an increase on an annual basis of at least anywhere between 1.25% to 1.5%. In addition, the second increases you're seeing is because of the growth in business, because these expenditures, while they're increasing, are also recoverable through social services. So because of the mix of the business and with different events every year, including biennial events, the hourly wages will go up to reflect the new business or the new shows or the new mix of business coming in. But 100% of those costs are recoverable by a chargeback to the events.
Oh, so while it shows on, just to clarify, while it shows an increase, you're getting it back through the events and things like that?
Yes, the increases are really passed on back to the shows because they're not permanent salary like me, for instance. They're really, when we make calls to the union hall, that's the cost, and they're always chargeable or recoverable back from shows.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. That concludes my question, and I thank your indulgence for letting me ask this. It's my first operation budget, so there are a lot of things I want to get cleared up, but it took a lot of time to go through it all too. If there aren't any other questions, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to move the operating budget.
May I ask a question?
Question. Okay, please unmute. Thank you. Councillor Holiday, the question, and I'm looking behind him. Councillor Holiday?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wondered if I could ask Don or Hardad if you could talk a little bit more about the process going forward. Hardad, you mentioned that you would bring the budget back in Q1 2021. I think we can all acknowledge that a zero-based budget may be the best that we've got right now, but on the balance of probability will require a fair amount of fine-tuning as we understand more about the impacts of COVID on our operation. It's a bit unusual to have to go back and revisit a budget to that extent, and I wondered if you could just zoom in on the process that the board can expect.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, through the chair, what could be expected, it will be a number of assumptions when we bring back an amended budget. Our first assumption in conversation with the city that we are suggesting is, and based on what we're seeing from the industry and exhibition business, one of the assumptions will be in the first quarter of 2021, there are likely going to be zero or very little shows. Most we could do in terms of public event is probably film shoot like we're currently doing. So the first quarter of 2021 will see a significant financial impact. And then anyway, from April to June, we're hoping that our summer events, the Indy, the Caribana, and all these special events, outdoor events, are likely to happen. And in the second half of the year, we'll probably make an assumption that we will get X percentage of our business back.
Good.
For instance, while some of it may not be totally back, some of the assumption may be that a certain show could come back and take 50%. It would be a reduced show and would be 50% in 2021 instead of 100%. Those will be most of the significant assumption. In terms of the expenditure side, given that we won't have the same level of revenue as in prior years, we are aggressively going to look at curtailing all discretionary expenses, training, traveling, and a number of contribution to like fleet reserve to the city, and all those things are going to be probably eliminated if that's the kind of year we're going to have in 2021. So we'll be very aggressive doing that. But at the end of the day, in conversation with the city, we want to be real and very practical. What is it that we're seeing for 2021? We are seeing, we're in discussion with a number of shows and events, and we're seeing right now that they're looking at canceling, including some of the major events in the first quarter. So it's going to be a tough year, because if it's not better in the US, it's likely not going to be better in Canada, and therefore a number of our attendees are not going to travel or will be reluctant to book and incur expenditures, knowing it may not, the event may not likely to happen, because in this business, there's a lot of lead time. So those are all there. So I think it'll be a very delicate balancing act with a budget, and to be as real as possible and right-size the budget.
So Hardat, we're under a lot of pressure in 2020. It's probably a fair assumption that 2021 will contain plenty of pressure, just as you alluded to. Can you remind the board, I think that we remit a modest surplus to the city historically. Has there been discussions about what that may look like in 2021 so that the city is not basing their finances on an assumption that may not be accurate or fair?
In preliminary discussion through the chair, in preliminary discussion with the city financial planning department last year, I was very clear what we're seeing in 2021 already. And while I don't want to make it public right now, a number of our large shows are looking at cancellation already, and I've already relayed the financial impact for those shows. So for instance, in this year, some of our big shows like the home show, we had the CNE, the Royal was canceled, the Indy was canceled. The financial impact of those are really huge. So the city is aware of what that is, and they already have a preliminary number what 2021 will look like based on up-to-date information we have as of today. But given that the pandemic situation is so fluid, by the time you see the next budget, we will have more information, and so you'll see that reflected in the amended budget with a list of assumptions we have agreed to provide to the board, a list of assumptions going into 2021, given where we are with the pandemic situation.
So Hardat, I won't put a motion, but I wondered if you could agree to take it as an endeavor just to think about ways that we can be on the record as much as possible as a board to be transparent about our financial situation. My concern is I just don't want to end up somewhere down the line and someone is surprised at a financial situation and they had been working on assumptions. And I circle right around that we were at a zero-based budget at the outset here, but I think it's incumbent on the board to make sure everyone's really clear with what's happening, and it is what it is, and we're going to do our best to manage it. But as I said, I didn't want anyone over on the financial side to be surprised at the situation. And if you could think about ways to convey the message frequently and transparently, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Through the chair, this is Don.
That was a question, right, Councilor Hall?
I hear you, Councilor Hall, and we're at the same place. The original direction from City Hall was status quo budget. We've got this, as Hardy was mentioned, we got the notice put in. We'd already been working on sort of what the reality budget of 2021. One of the reports that we'll likely bring to you in December is with respect to our tenants. We have 4 tenants that have been completely shuttered since last March. And the city has spoken about support for different businesses and that the landlords should be doing everything in their power to assist. And I feel the same way. We have very, very good tenants that are secure tenants, and we don't want to lose them. And at the same point, they're going through a devastation when it comes to their businesses. And so I want to be on the record. The city right now is looking at a deferment of these leases. But we have some unique situations on these grounds that I think requires more than that. And so when I look at to be bringing you forward a report, most likely at the December meeting, I've spoken to we think your point is we want to be a front and we want to bring it forward.
Thank you, Councilor Holiday. Howard, the question?
Yes, question to the chair. I'm not sure we're being asked to vote on this particular budget and approve it now because we know that it's likely will not play out like that. Like, what are we being asked today? And in the budget that's going to come back, can we wait till Q1 2021 to take a look at it? Because I think we sort of need scenario analysis. What happens if the world doesn't open up till June 1st or July 1st? What if September 1st? What if it's the entire year? Because as was noted to us and is logical, even when stuff is allowed to open up, it doesn't mean that the taps turn on in terms of people planning events because people need significant lead time. So I'm trying to understand what we're voting on now and when we might see some scenarios.
Well, the recommendations are right there. There's 1, 2, 3. That's what we're voting on today. That's and you maybe Don, you want to deep into that further, but.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in speaking last Thursday with the city financial planning staff, they were okay with this budget as is because this was the preliminary directions and guidelines that was provided. All we're saying is because the pandemic situation has continued, they will come up with new guidelines. They have not confirmed that in writing yet, but I wanted to give us the heads up with new guidelines. So it's okay to approve this budget either way, but we will be bringing back an amended budget similarly to 2020 this year. But in September, we brought a revised budget to the board with an update on our financial situation. So it's okay to approve this budget because this is the right direction from the city for the preliminary submission.
Okay, I'm not sure. I hear what is being said. When do you think we're going to have the revised scenario budgets?
I think we'll bring it back in the first meeting in the new year.
Is that too late, given that we'll already be into the year?
We probably could bring it in. There's a board meeting on December the 8th. If it's possible, we could bring it to that meeting. If not, we'll have to be the first meeting in the new year.
Chair, is it possible to request that we try and make it for that meeting, given, all about voting on revised budgets?
Don, you okay with that?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, we'll shoot for that. I think right now what we're doing is we've laid off 827 employees currently. We're at skeleton staff. We brought in the show productions, and we're doing essential work only within the grounds. And so from a fiscal sort of perspective of sort of circling the wagons and ensuring that we're taking care of our dollars. We're doing that, but I understand what the council or what the board member's saying. Definitely, the sooner the better. We've already worked on a lot of it ourselves, and so we'll be bringing that forward. And so it's really about a revenue hit within those big shows that we would actually be bringing those additional staff back to support. And so, but because we make significant dollars off of those shows, particularly heavy weight in that first quarter, with much up until that sort of that June period of time, we'll look at bringing it back for December.
If I can add, Mr. Chair, if I can add, the reason for not knowing fully whether we will bring it back in December or January is because the city has not provided written instruction on either the preliminary or final budget guidelines. So that is the issue. The city realized the situation is so fluid that they continue to work on it. At some point, if we have not concrete but good information, we could bring back an operating budget in December. If not, will have to be the first meeting in 2021. But we will certainly work towards with city to try and bring it back in December. I fully understand.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Howard, you good with that?
I'm good. I would just say, regardless of when the city finally gives us the information, we can look at 2 or 3 scenarios which are most likely, and then we can say, hey, if it happens, here's what we're going to do if it happens. And I also wanted to commend both Don and the rest of the team in terms of what they have done in terms of stewarding the ship through all of this and generating revenues. It's in no way meant to be critical at all of what's been done so far with the stewardship. It's more a question of understanding on a go-forward basis, where we're going to be at with some scenario analysis. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please ask everybody, please mute your mics when you're not speaking, please, because we're getting a lot of background noise. I need everyone to mute their mics if they're not speaking. So seeing no further questions.
Mr. Chair?
Stephen?
I wondered if you could either vary the process and allow me an additional question, or if you could hold it down for a moment. I had a suggestion, and I would like the staff's advice on it. It's
okay.
just simply
one sec, Councillor. So second round of questions. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Holly, any question?
Thank you. I think it'll be helpful. Point number 3 is that the board direct the chief executive officer to submit the 2021 budget to the city financial planning division. I wonder, to Mr. Lichtman's point, if it would be appropriate to ask management to put a cover letter on it that identifies the preliminary nature of the budget, the zero-based assumption, and that the board will be returning very shortly with a significantly revised budget. And that way it's on the record that we are responding to their request, and that it would be prudent to expect something different. And I wondered if that would be an appropriate thing from management's perspective.
I see our CEO shaking his head, Don.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So I can submit that motion, Mr. Chair. If you can give me a moment, if you can hold it down, I'll have it into the clerk in just a sec.
Okay. Is there any further questions? Seeing none. Okay, we'll hold this item down that Councillor Hawley can get his motion in writing into Carol. Okay, so we'll hold that down. We'll moving right along. So we're going to go to 14.5, Exhibition Place Hotel X Development. We have a presentation by Mr. Callan from Hotel X. Unless we have a registered speaker, I propose that we hear the presentation first, and we'll go to speakers. I think there's 3 speakers So anyway, so we'll go to Mr. Callan, and I think he has a team of with him. So I don't know who's doing the presentation, but to Hotel X. Mr. Callan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I hope everyone is keeping healthy and well. And I would like to pass on to Bob Hunter. Are you there, Bob? Bob? Hello? Can you hear me, Bob?
Sorry, can hear you now. Sorry.
Oh, I just introduced by the chair, and I said that we appreciate the opportunity to do this presentation, and if you allow me to pass this chance to do the presentation to you on our behalf. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Henry. And I'd like to even quicker pass the torch to Stephen Armstrong, who is a planner in the city working with both Hotel X and ourselves on what we hope the board will consider a very exciting project.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having us. We have a slide presentation. I'm just wondering how that works. Does it come in from the clerk's end and they bring it up on the screen?
Yeah, Carol, you should be able to pull that up, right, Carol?
Yes, we can put that on the screen for you, and then there it is. And you can just let us know when you need to move to the next slide.
Yeah, so thank you very much. As I said, my name is Stephen Armstrong. I'm pleased to be here today and present what we call the phase 2 of the Hotel X and performance venue. So if we can go to the next slide. We've got just a brief slide presentation, a couple of slides, just trying to show the image of the Hotel X. I love this picture. I think it looks great in the twilight. Next slide. Obviously, with the Princess Gates and the whole theme of the master plan for Exhibition Place, we've looked at that in detail. And next slide. Through the presentation, we're going to show you part of it's how we tried to take into account the surrounding areas, the hotel, obviously the Stanley Barracks. But if we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. What we're here today is to bring to you the beginnings of a proposal to expand the Hotel X, build a second 30-story hotel, approximately 400 rooms, similar to what's there today with all the amenities you see, as well as restaurants and lounge. As well, in this proposal, we're proposing to add to the lower area a entertainment venue comprised of 6,000 to 7,000 seats that will be used for esports and other venues complementary to the area and also to the city. Here, what we're also thinking in this proposal is to bring what we call a Tier 1 restaurant to the area, something that would be on the south end of the site as part of the venue overlooking the lake and the future Ontario Place. As part of the proposal, we're looking to extend the public realm, which I've got a few figures that I can show you in terms of the sidewalks along Princess Boulevard, but more importantly, to match into the future linkages of the exhibition in terms of linking to the current and future facilities and the rapid transit. And then finally, also the provision of some underground parking that will be utilized by the hotel and also made public for events and during the weekday. We can go to the next slide. These are just some images the architects have. It's more just the theme on matching the public realm. Obviously, it's going to be something different. It's just a visual to give you an idea that we plan on extending west what's there today in front of the Hotel X in terms of trees, sidewalks, and the amenities we have. Next slide. One of the key components of the area, and that's also in the master plan, is as part of the built form, not only be compatible, but you've got an identification for public art to be in the corner of the project on Princess Boulevard, but on the west side of the hotel. This is just to show you some examples of public art in the area, but more importantly, as part of the public art, you're going to see as part of the public realm the idea of creating what they call meeting places. So the public art can play in terms of, hey, meet me at this place prior to the event, and also to be a signature of the area. And I know that's something that's important to the master plan and also to the proposal to provide a focal point of the area. Next slide. So again, this feeds on to what I was just saying. These are just some of the bullet points that come out of your master plan, but again, compatible in scale, the hotel, the podium, prominent lake views, flexible and adaptable space, which is what we're looking at. And again, as part of your master plan, you're looking to try to integrate below grade parking facilities where feasible. And again, that's what this proposal will be trying to do. Next slide. So this is just to give you an idea of the footprint and the building and to specify what we're thinking. So obviously the hotel you can see is the box at the front along the hotel with the podium and entertainment venue moving along the south towards Lakeshore Boulevard. What we've done is we've identified some key features that we're going to be looking at. One is the east elevation at grade. Obviously, we want to have a nice at grade complementary to the Stanley Barracks, but also it's going to play a big role in public gatherings, people coming and going from the complex. As well, one of the things that we'll be focusing on quite heavily is the west side of the building. That's basically the west side of the building is going to be adjacent to your festival square, where there's no planned buildings to be. So we're very aware in terms of architectural design and features that obviously we're not going to have a big blank wall. The architects know this. We know that. We just wanted the committee to know that we're looking at doing something that's going to be visually pleasing to look at and not a blank wall. And we wanted the committee and city, and when we move forward, to know that we're aware that this west wall is going to be important. And then obviously the north feature along Princess Boulevard, the hotel drop-off, the entrance to the hotel is gain another aesthetic feature that is really going to be a big focus for the architects and us moving forward. Next slide. So again, these are just some of the points I touched on. We're very well aware of the location of the public art. Excited to see that through. Obviously, everything will be visible and accessible to the public. And in terms of the meeting places, again, we think this is important. We know when we all go to events or we're meeting people, we say, hey, let's meet, in Scotia Center for the Leaf games. You meet by I call it the ice cream cone that's upside down, or you meet in certain places. We kind of want to have that sort of feel when you come out that people say, hey, meet me there. And I think in the exhibition place and the master plan, that's important that we all use when we go to events. Next slide. This again is another feature of the proposal that we know has a large emphasis on both the master plan and the project, and that's the linkages. Again, we're trying to show you the meeting point idea, but more you can see the north-south connection that we want to try to achieve on the west side of the building. This matches in with your long-term plans, matches with the structure plan in terms of going up to the current GO station or the TTC loop, but also matches with the future expansions of the rapid transit. So again, that's key to the success of not only the overall exhibition, but to this project. We think obviously rapid transit, easy connection points, north-south connections are important. The east-west off Princess Boulevard, we understand we want to limit truck access to the hotel on the boulevard. And then again, we're trying to show how everything connects. The connection across Lakeshore Boulevard is going to be important because we realize there's a current bridge there, but we understand in the future that it might be going down. So the next slide are really the points that I talked about that I don't need to go over. But again, it's a recognition that the master plan and the structure of everything is very heavily weighted in terms of making sure the connections, both current and future, all work well together. Next slide. Then in terms of other features, again, minimize freight traffic off Princess Boulevard. We're looking to have a shared access on the west side of the building. That's a shared driveway, possibly between Exhibition Place and us, where trucks will come down a driveway, so not on Princess Boulevard. Obviously, we're looking at green roof features that I'll show you. That again is another feature. Practices with respect to the green roof, stormwater management, and green linkages are all again key initiatives that's going in. So if we can go to the next slide. just trying to show again, just visually some ideas we have for green roofs. Again, it's got to be vetted out, but just trying to acknowledge that we know that's a key goal of the plan and something that is going to give the attention to the architects. So I know that's a quick presentation, but again, I think it's an exciting proposal. I think it shows the confidence that the proponent has not only in the city, but an exhibition place, a commitment for a second hotel. We're excited about the entertainment venue, and from my point of view and Bob's and the applicant or proponent, excited for the committee to receive the staff report, and then for us to start working with staff both at your end and at the city end to advance it. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. We will now take questions of the board. Any questions of the presenters?
Questions,
Joe?
John?
Chair, just a question. Chair, did you say we were going to hear the presentation, then do deputations and go back to questions?
Yeah, I was going to do the questions, and we're going to go to the deputy, but I'm open if we want to hear from the deputies first. Is that what you want to do?
It just might help to inform some of our questions is all.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we will go to our deputants. Carol, you've got the list there.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the first deputant is on the line. His name is George Sawison.
Okay, so Mr. Sawison, welcome. Good morning. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's George Solician. I've talked about the Hotel X1 project before. We're talking about the site of the concentration camp that was built on the site many years ago. It's supposed to be a protected land use, but City Hall has not changed the zoning to protect that line. And I was wondering, considering this presentation, there's no mention of this site and no art or anything to commemorate that site, to indicate to the public that this is a national heritage site. And this, considering what's going on in Ottawa right now with the building of internment camps and so forth, I think it's very appropriate that building this hotel should at least have some structure or some sort of park or some sort of commemoration that the previous site use was there. And it would help in informing the public of the history of Toronto. And I understand sometimes history is not great or wonderful to hear. Sometimes the items of the past are not wonderful to experience. However, it is history, and Toronto is full of historical sites, and it really makes our city accessible and really interesting to people coming to our city to see the history of what has happened in our areas. So I'm just trying to consider that hopefully that the City Council and the Exhibition Place Board could consider the sensitivity of that issue and incorporate it into the hotel site if possible. And of course, as I said before, to zone the area to be protected for future possibilities of this type of commemoration. And I think it's very apropos for people of Toronto to understand that Exhibition Place has been the heart of Toronto and has played an important role for many, many people, hopefully not only in the past, but in the future to come, because I think it would be wonderful for people to know how Exhibition Place has evolved and where it is going, and it would help in the planning of the future as well. I hope I can keep it to short as possible. I don't need 5 minutes, but hopefully if you could all consider that, and it would be appreciated by the community at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you. Carol, our next speaker, please.
Mr. Chair, our next speaker is Mary Galatly, and I believe she's on the line.
Thank you, Carol. Ms. Galatly, good morning. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and the board. So yes, my name is Mary Galatney. I'm with Parkdale Community Legal Services. Also with me is Chris Archer. I'll just make a couple comments and then pass it over to Chris. It is reassuring to hear the proposal of Hotel X and, confidence that we will be able to move through this COVID period into recovery. I just want to note that the reputation of Hotel X certainly has been built up by the wonderful food and beverage workers that were up until very recently working there. And so we're asking the board to halt further consideration of this proposal and until the over 200 workers who were recently let go by Hotel X received their termination pay of approximately $1.4 million. And so I was going to pass it over to Chris Archer to, he's a former worker at Hotel X, to provide a bit more information. Chris?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So I am one of the workers, one of the 200 workers that were let go from Hotel X during the pandemic. We are currently looking for $1.4 million in severance due to the mass virus. The pandemic hit the hotel and closed it around March 15th. We were promised that our jobs would be held and for us when everything went back to normal and we could come back to work. On July 15th, we found out that Hotel X was hiring service staff for the NHL bubble. We later learned that Peter and Paul had been locked out, and that was breaking a 10-year lease that they had with the hotel. They were replaced with Project X, a collaboration with Harlow, Honeycomb, and Food Dude. On July 20th, sports news articles reported the new addition of the sports arena on the CNA grounds was planned by Henry Callan and new investor Jeffrey Kimmel, the CEO of Harlow. Growth and investment is great for the city. Library, collection, hotels in Harlow will make millions from this investment, just as Henry and his investors did in 2009 when they made $330 million when Hotel X was announced. Henry Callan broke the contract to bring in this investment and is taking no responsibility for us 200 workers that were affected. They're asking the city to hold a higher standard for fair wage and labor practices to the companies that work within its boundaries, to support and protect low-income, vulnerable workers from predatory companies that use loopholes to hide from their responsibility. We're asking you to refrain from moving forward with this expansion until this labor dispute has been resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputy? Seeing none, thank you. I don't think, Carol, there's any more speakers. Correct?
That's correct. That was the third registered speaker, yeah.
Okay, so members of the board, question sorry?
Mr. Chair, may I respond? It's not fair.
No, Henry, sorry, you can't at this point, but I'll ask a question so you can respond. So we're on to questions of you now. Questions of the deputants? Questions? Councillor Cressy.
Well, thank you. And I have some questions related to the proposal, but Peter, I heard you just there say you wished to respond. So I'll
sorry, that was Henry. Sorry, Joe, that was Mr. Callan that wanted to respond. So if me can ask him the floor of a question so he can respond.
Certainly. Mr. Callan.
And Joe, you're very good at that. I know you can frame that in a question.
So we just heard a deputation regarding these 200 workers and termination pay. I wonder if you could respond, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to respond. And I think that Mr. Archer is completely misguided by his statements. But let me make it very, very clear. Okay? I feel very privileged and honored that I had the opportunity to build this beautiful property, and I think that the citizens of Toronto are very proud of it. And this was a major, major investment for me personally. We took a lot of risks to accomplish this, And the reality is for Mr. Archer that we are doing everything possible to do the right thing from a business point of view, from a point of view of looking after the employees and so forth. And he knows me personally very well. And I've done nothing but show respect for everyone who I get in contact with from a business point of view or on a personal level. The most important thing, why Peter and Paul is no longer there, is that the primary reason they were not paying the proper wages and benefits to their employees. Hotel has nothing to do with the employees of Peter and Paul. They work for Peter and Paul. They were hired by Peter and Paul. They were paid by Peter and Paul. If they're entitled to any benefits or any severance pay, it must be paid by Peter and Paul. Now, from a point of view of responding to their claim, they filed a claim. It's in the court. It's being handled legally by lawyers. And just to respect the process, the court process, we have not responded officially, but I believe that the truth will come out. And I can also state here with certainty that Peter and Paul, for the past 18 months, nothing to do with COVID, they've been insolvent, as they claim that they are insolvent, and they filed with the petition with the bankruptcy court, I guess, to file for bankruptcy officially. So at the same time, instead paying their employees and trying to spend money to really look after their employees, they are financing possibly a litigation against the hotel, and the hotel has absolutely nothing to do with their employees. This was a contractual obligation, and they were not performing from a point of view of quality of service. And we've had a number of conversations, wrote dozens of letters to the ownership of Peter and Paul to protect their own investment, to look after the employees. We were completely ignored. So all I can say is that I'm hoping that the courts, if necessary, will make the decision. And it's also, I believe, in the Ministry of Labor, and I look forward to that decision as well, because the law is on our side, and everyone who works for me at the hotel, whether it's Peter and Paul employees or the employees of the hotel, they understand that the most important for me is to look after everybody, pay them well, respect them, because the way I treat my employees, that's how they treat my guests. And that's basically my sentiment on the subject. So I think that Mr. Archer and his group need to really look to the real responsible entity, which is not doing the right thing. So I wish them well, good luck, and thank you for the opportunity to share my view on this.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Joe, I'll give you a few more time for your questions. You got other questions?
Yeah, and I understand that that matter is in front of the courts, and I also understand that we're dealing here with a concept around phase 2. But I guess just to close the loop on that one, and I'll pose the same question for city staff when we get there. I guess while this may be in front of the courts, there are 200 people who did lose jobs. And so I guess the question I would have is, what efforts can or is the Hotel X undertaking to ensure those workers are protected and unpaid wages or termination pay covered for them?
Question to who?
Well, that's a question for Hotel X.
I think Joe, Mr. Cowan answered that it's not his responsibility. He said it was Peter and Paul's. The contract is with Peter and Paul. So I think he's saying it's not their responsibility. That's what I heard from his first answer to your question. And Mr. Cowan, you may want to clarify.
And to be clear, I heard that answer. And I'll pose the same question to our city staff. I guess my question is, what efforts are being undertaken, and I will ask city staff the same, by Hotel X to ensure that these workers are taken care of?
Well, I think that'd be a question for staff, Joe. I think Mr. Cowan answered that question, but do you have any other questions besides that?
Then my other question would be, just as it relates to the design concept, what is the status of conversations and a proposal to city planning and the city on this?
Yeah, just hold on. I'm just trying to put my video back on. There we go. Hi, sorry. We haven't, we were waiting for this meeting, Councillor, and subject to the committee approving the staff recommendation, then we'll be moving forward to setting up meetings with city staff, planning, heritage, urban design, etc.
Okay, so those meetings haven't taken place yet. They haven't had a chance to review that. Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr.
Senator,
Leon?
thank you, Chair. To the presenter and Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Velk, thank you very much. I think what you've given us this morning is more than encouraging and exciting to see, and I'm very pleased how you're fitting into the master plan that's underway. My question is a little bit in the interest of the patrons who will come to the hotel and support it. And that is, have you given thought to the price points that might be affordable for the people coming to stay in the hotel? I recognize how early it is now, but I'm looking to the time, the style or the type of building that you're planning to put in place and how it could be accessible to the people who attend events at Exhibition Place. As you know, is this going to be a high-end price point? Is it going to be a mid-range price point, or whichever? I'm wondering if that might be clarified a little bit.
Yes, if this is being addressed to me, Henry Callan, I'm happy to share my vision.
Thank you, Peter.
Peter is my nephew. Anyway.
Sorry, my apologies.
I'm not a very good tech guy, so he's holding my hand. Anyway, thank you very much. So we are very, very excited with the Harlow Group and the Kimmel family, and obviously everyone on the team, Bob Pope and Stephen Armstrong and so forth. And yes, indeed, the stadium and / theater is one thing, and I think this is exactly what I believe the city of Toronto needs. At the same time, from a point of view of the hotel, I'm very proud what we were able to accomplish with the existing property. I've always been told that finally a hotel with a great design in the city of Toronto. From a point of view of price range, yes, indeed, we will be very much focusing on a hotel which will be very affordable for families to come to this fine destination and hopefully enjoy all the future development of the Exhibition Place and Ontario Place. So we are really focused to create a product which is equally nice, but the price range is very accessible to families who, I guess, are not in a position to pay $400 or $500, but it's mostly going to be between $200 and $300. What I would like to also, of course, remind everyone that the cost of construction and building anything in the city of Toronto today is not exactly inexpensive, so we need to keep that in mind. But our goal is really to be able to serve to critical mass, and it's not going to be necessarily a convention hotel as the Hotel X is today, but it will be catering more to not only the family needs, but also to the Exhibition Place clientele, which many times requires rates which are much more reasonable as what we have today.
Oh, that's a wonderful answer. And that was really what I was hoping to hear, keeping the family idea in mind and the way we're going with the master plan. Thank you very much, and looking forward to hearing more as the project comes along to us. Thank you, and have a good day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Deputy Mayor Holiday, the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my question is for Mr. Armstrong, but I'll let anyone of the presentation team jump in. None of us would be on this board if we didn't think Exhibition Place is a special place. And there was, our first speaker talked about one of the aspects of history, that there was a concentration camp on this side of the Stanley Barracks. I wondered if you could offer a little bit more comment about how you're going to integrate the history and the essence of X Place into the hotel, and maybe a little bit about that process, or if you've got some early ideas. I really think this is a great opportunity to talk about that history in a really special way that, it, as the speaker said, draws people's attention to the history of these grounds, which is very important for Canada beyond just Toronto, but for the whole country. And I love what has happened so far with the revealing of the old barracks, but maybe there's a chance to do a bit more. And if you've got something you can tell the board, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so thank you through you, Mr. Chairman. That's a great. So I actually made a note of the comment from the first speaker, because one of the items that I mentioned was the idea of public art or and meeting places. So maybe one of the thoughts on from a heritage point of view is maybe the public art can recognize or pay tribute to the past history of the site or the concentration camp, or make some sort of reference. I think that's something that I made a note of that can maybe come through some discussions with the staff and bringing it through. So I did make that note because, to be honest, I didn't know that, to be frank, and I thought that was an interesting comment. In terms of the venues, and I think, as I know when I first came on the project, we do want to pay special attention to the Stanley Barracks. I think it's a great feature, something that can be enhanced. So one of the things we're looking at is, in terms of walkway and linkages, is enhancing the interface between the east side of the site and the Stanley Barracks and the current hotel. So we definitely have that on our radar. It's nothing I can show you now, but I can tell you, Councillor, that, and I think Bob knows this, and the client, is that not only do we have to focus on the west, which I think is really important because of the wall and there's going to be nothing in front of it, the east side with the Stanley Barracks, that we don't forget about it, and maybe from a pedestrian level we can blend and be compatible with the architecture and, you know, the brick color and those type of features that the barracks is made of. So we definitely want to try to utilize the space on the east side.
Thank you. And just maybe the follow on is, and I think I heard it, is just to confirm that the history of the site and that importance will remain a prominent element in the work that you do as a designer, and more so in this project than others, just because of where it is.
Absolutely. So, for instance, if you know at the Stanley Barracks, there's a plaque there now that explains it, what it was used for. That's a helpful feature. Maybe that can be further enhanced through what the first speaker was saying. So plaques, artwork, definitely on the table. And I did make that note. It's in the notes. I think that's the kind of thing that I think will pay. That's good at the end of the day of a product that everyone feels part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions? Seeing, I just have a few. Mr. Armstrong, you mentioned parking. How many parking spaces are we looking to put in the hotel? Do we know at this point?
Yes, we're looking at approximately, Councillor, Mr. Chairman, we're looking at, I believe it's about 400 spaces on one level.
Will those spaces be connected to the existing parking at Hotel X now in the phase one?
So unfortunately, we've looked at that. We don't think that's going to be feasible, just because you'd have to get underneath the barracks given the water table. But again, they'll be accessible public and for events.
Okay. And then with regards to the theater, I saw the article on EA Sports, and I know it's an up and coming huge phenomenon for EA Sports, for these kids to be playing, or other kids or adults playing these games. But what other ideas do you see happening in this theater? What would be taking part in the theater portion?
Yeah, so we see it as like a multi-purpose. It can be used as a theater for plays or other events. It can also be used as part of meetings, or if people want to book it for that, or just a multi-purpose facility. We don't see it as a sports facility at all, but we see it as more of a multi-purpose theater for events. People want to put on plays or other type of events, they can use it.
So this would be set up kind of like a Roy Thompson Hall kind of thing. It wouldn't be like a circular arena. This would be kind of like a half moon, half circle. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the way I understand it, again, yeah, it's not set up as, yeah, it's set up as a front forward theater looking in that can be modified. And today they can modify the seats or the space per event. So they're trying to make it as flexible as they can to attract as many users as they can.
Okay, and I know we're in early stages, but you keep talking about the west wall that kind of faces onto our festival plaza. What kind of ideas do you see happening possibly there?
Right. So there's a couple of ideas that we've been floating out. Well, one is there's going to have to be some architectural articulation, right, in the wall, or some sort of, in terms of materials, a mix of materials to make it architecturally. I use the word pleasing. You just don't want one material that just is bland. There's also the idea of maybe there's some sort of, can be, I call it a jumbotron, or some sort of visual feature that can be used as part of events or multi-purpose that the exhibition can take advantage of. And then just basically through glass and through the amenities that they really want that to be a nice visual presence.
Great. And I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I know our CEO, Don Boyle, sent you our strategic plan. It looks like in your presentation, you've taken that into account. But as you move forward, you'll be taking our strategic plan totally in as you move forward with the hotel.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was a big help. And like I said, we've tried to fit in the major principles of it. And then, we look forward to refining it and implementing it. Okay. And then you're talking 30 stories again. I know you are probably aware of this, but that is a relief for Porter Airlines for when their planes are taking off. You'll take that into account. Have you talked to Porter Airlines at this point, or is that too early at this point? It's too early, but we definitely know. When I said 30 stories, I just wanted the committee to appreciate we might just try to duplicate it. But we know, working through Porter, my experience in the area, if there needs to be some adjustments, we'll definitely make whatever we need. But we'll have to do the appropriate studies and work with them and obviously get their sign off.
Great. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, speakers. Councillor Cressy?
Oh, I have questions of staff.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you're right. Sorry. Questions of staff. Councillor Cressy.
Thank you. So do we have, and this, I'll go to our CEO, but do we have city planning here today?
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, I believe they're on this call.
Okay, so I'll just start. So Dawn, to you. So there's no recommendation here today because there are no approvals in front of us. This is an update for information. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, that's correct. This is about the concept of it, and we have been working, as the proponent mentioned, about the master plan. And so I did speak to planning on Friday before getting this actual presentation. So we'll be pulling them in, and our working relationship actually with city planning has been excellent. And so, and when you saw in the connectivity of this site, both north and south and east and west, those are all the principles taking place. So this will be one that will be, city planning will be with us as in partnership to ensure that this project meets the principles of the grounds.
So, but
sorry, Joe, if I can just jump in there, sorry. If I can just answer that too. I was here for the first phase. I was on the board the first phase. I don't think anybody else was, but the board really kind of drove the first part of it, what we were looking for. I wanted to make sure that this board had their input before this will obviously, go to the city planning, and they were quite involved from urban design and from the first phase. But I really want to make sure that our strategic plan was taken into account and that this board had some input before it went off to the city planning. And that's how it worked last time. And I think the first phase was absolutely fantastic. I want to make sure the second phase that this board has its input before it goes off to city planning.
No, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. And I think just for my clarity, and I think our boards, is if we have planning on the phone, can you walk us through what the actual approval process is? Does this require a rezoning application? Does it require a planning review? Does it go to community council and then council for approval? Like, I just want to understand how our board intersects with the formal city approvals for this.
Yeah, so through the chair, I just looked at Councilor Cressy. I don't see planning on this call, and so we'll have to pull that information together for the board, and I can put together an overview.
Okay, so but just to be clear, this site does require a rezoning application. Is that correct?
I don't believe so. I think that was all based in the phase one, and this was many of the terms on phase two were already included in phase one.
So So I think it would be helpful for our board to get some clarity on that, because my understanding is that there is planning approvals and city approvals required. And I think for the clarity for our board to understand where we have opportunities to provide feedback, where the city is making decisions, I think we need to understand the approvals process. I know this is an update being given to us, but I understood from planning that there is a formal planning approvals and rezoning process.
I will follow up with the board on that matter.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then the other questions have been raised regarding employment standards, and I think this is broader for our partners and leaseholders in general. And so I guess my first question would be, what city policies, as it relates to employment standards, are our leaseholders expected to follow? Is like the fair wage policy or the decent work framework? Like, what are the city policies that we as a part of the broader family have to adhere to?
Yeah, the fair wage policy is guidance, but I think Jack Payne, who's on this call, may be able to speak to leases and the how policies affect leases. Jack?
Sorry, through the chair. I apologize. I had to get to this meeting late due to a family issue. But I mean, generally, I think, and I would have to take a look in more detail at the specific contents of this lease. But typically, we would have we would expect our tenants to have a general obligation to follow all applicable laws. And applicable laws typically would be defined broadly to include any city policies as well as legislation and guidelines and that sort of thing. So in terms of, I mean, there is an applicable law clause in this lease, which I'm looking at right now, and it does include basically, it's very broadly worded, and so I think it could be read that any applicable type city policies could probably be read into to the lease as being something that would need to be followed.
So in a scenario like that, and I guess this is, Don, back to you, where we have a scenario where we have a third-party contractor and resulting in a legal dispute around workers, how do you then get involved to help ensure that all applicable laws are followed and that we're supportive?
Yeah, so through the chair, given the fact that it's a third party in the contract, and it is under a legal matter right now, up to this point in time, we have not been involved in any operator or leaseholders contracts with third parties. It's not something that we would review on a standard basis moving forward. And so this is a matter that's before the courts and is a private matter between the leaseholder, our tenant, and their contractor. So I'd have to check with Jack further with respect to that.
Okay, those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Cressy, any further questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll have a question. Maybe Mr. Armstrong, if he's still on the line, he's their planner. Is Mr. Armstrong still there?
Yes.
Could you maybe answer that question that Councillor Cressy had? Does this, in your mind, does this need a rezoning? Do you know?
Right. So I can. So no, it doesn't require a rezoning. It requires a site plan application. So, for instance, when when phase one was built, the Hotel X had no site plan. Had no rezoning required. The uses permitted. I should say technically, and I don't want to be a lawyer. There's some is that under the exhibition. Actually, it's funny is under the Toronto Act is that you're technically excluded from city bylaws, but I know you work with the city as sort of a working partnership, but there was no rezoning for the Hotel X. It's site plan approval. Obviously, the archaeological heritage and all that were brought in through the site plan process.
Great. Thank you. Those are my questions. Okay, seeing no further questions to speak. Councillor Cressy to speak.
Well, thank you. Let me begin, by stating the obvious, which is that when we have a new site or potential site developed, we only get one shot to get it right, and it's critical that we do. And so it's in that vein, as an update for information here, I do appreciate the chair endeavoring to make sure that we were fully informed from the outset. I should say that I will acknowledge I'm a little surprised that we're having this meeting about this site, but we don't have a position or an opinion from city planning staff as to what approvals are necessary. I think that's something our board needs to understand. I just heard the answer from the applicant, but it's planning that decides. It's not the applicant that decides what the city process is. And so I'd ask our team at X Place to endeavor to ensure that this board receives a briefing, and even if it's a memo, very clearly articulating what the steps and approval processes are so that we can best be informed to engage in it. And that's a process piece. I think just at a high level, I think the opportunities as we think about reanimation and repurposing of the site, obviously, we want to ensure that it's contributing to the animation of the site and meeting our strategic vision as the meeting place. That's a key principle. A second key principle for me is good planning, that we have a cultural heritage assessment that we just endorsed. We have an emerging master plan. We want to be crystal clear, and I heard a lot of this described in the presentation, but we want to be really clear that we meet our high standards for heritage, for view corridors east and west, that it aligns with the Festival Plaza that we've endorsed as an emerging piece, that we need good planning as a second key principle. And I think as a third key principle, city building. And by that it contributes, as everything we want to do, to the livability of this city and for the guests who visit it and the workers. And so as we move forward, I understand there is no recommendation here in front of us. It is an update, that the decisions will come later. And I think we do need that formal approval process outlined for us as a board. Though I will say, part of this conversation moved into a discussion over a legal arrangement and some workers who currently have termination pay outstanding and who's responsible for that. And that's an important issue because we oversee the land. We oversee our tenants at a high level, though we don't have a relationship with contractors, I understand. And so I will have a new business item for our board to hopefully consider to fully understand on a go-forward basis with all of our properties. What are the employment standards and the city policies that must be followed and how we can help to ensure that they are. And with that, Mr. Chair, I thank you again for working to bring this here so proactively, so that we have early sense, and I'll conclude my remarks.
Thank you, Councillor Cressy. Any further speakers? Seeing none, I'll just finish off. So, right from the outset, when Mr. Cowan exercised his right to bring the second phase forward, I want to make sure the board was totally engaged. So I think this is a second report we brought forward. So all the things that Councillor Cressy said, this is why we brought this forward here now. The recommendation to receive the report, but get us thinking about what are we looking at in this phase. But if you want to go back to the first phase, I got to say, this hotel, I've had recommended to many people from across the country and from the United States. This is spectacular. We got the first phase. We nailed it, I believe. If you haven't been in that hotel, I would love to take you there. And it is absolutely fantastic. And the hidden part with the Stanley Barracks, there was no, that is spectacular what they did just on the history side. So I think, with Mr. Armstrong and when they moved through the process with city planning, I think if there's some history there that has been retained, that'll come, no problem. But I can tell you that hotel is spectacular. I've toured it with Mr. Cowan a few times. The vision he had for that was spectacular, but I think we did get it right the first phase, Councillor Cressy, and I'm hoping that we're going to get it right again on the second phase. There's a lot of great opportunity. We made sure that they had our strategic plan. Don moved that. I moved that the last meeting. We gave it to them. That will come into play for sure. And Joe, I can assure you through the first phase, city planning and urban design put them through the ringer. Mr. Cowan will tell you that. But let's have some faith in Hotel X. I said they got the first phase right. I'm excited about the second phase, what it's going to mean for Expedition Place, and what's going to happen across the Lakeshore Boulevard, Ontario Place when that starts moving. So I think it's going to be a key piece for our grounds. And I know Don, our CEO, is all over this, but I do want to make sure that while we had this coming here, we wanted to hear what they were thinking before it got too far along. And then when the time is right, city planning will get involved. But I think they've got a good team assembled again. And I said, I was there for the first phase, and it was a great process, but I do want to make sure that this board is engaged before it goes off to city planning. That's why this is here, to be clear. So with that, those are my remarks, and I will be happy to move receipt of the report today. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we have one more left. We have a presentation on 14.6. Carol, if you could stick that up on the screen for me, please. Carol, you got me there? Carol?
It should be coming up right now.
Okay, yeah. So Don, I'll turn it over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Chair. Since March, staff have been working tirelessly on maintaining the grounds, but also looking at reopening the grounds and protecting the health and welfare of our staff and our tenants and those visitors to Exhibition Place. And through this work, we've attained a number of certifications that were geared towards really ensuring that the public was well aware and formal and in a formal manner put forward policies and procedures that would ensure the health and well-being of visitors coming to Exhibition Place once we were given the go-ahead from public health in the province. Our plans have all been reviewed through public health, and we've received extremely positive support from those staff. In fact, they've helped us to a degree in lobbying to move us forward, subject to the provincial health guidelines. And obviously, we're in a modified phase 2 right now within it, but we want to be ready to open. And I think it was member Howard Litchman who mentioned that much of our business has a 4 to 5 month lead time. And so it's critical that we get ahead of it. So today we have a presentation with our general manager, Laura Purdy, and with Matthew Buckles of our facilities services team. And so I'll hand it over to them now to present today's information. Laura?
Thank you, Don. And through the chair, could I have a slide change, please? Next slide. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The COVID-19 pandemic has been devastating to Exhibition Place, our clients and tenants who organize meetings, conventions, and exhibitions. Our team, however, has been hard at work, retooling, restructuring, and planning for the safe reopening and resumption of our core businesses. Today, I would like to share with the board some of our current projects and recent industry achievements. Next slide, please. At the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, and with the government restrictions imposed on gathering numbers, our team focused on resumption planning and advocacy efforts with our industry colleagues across Canada and internationally. These efforts have been initiated through our participation and leadership on numerous industry and government reopening and recovery task forces, where we have worked in regional and national groups on the impact, recovery, and advocacy initiatives for the business events industry. We've communicated constantly with our tenants, clients, and staff in an open and transparent manner on these subjects. New slide, please. On a bright note, Intercare Centre was honored to be named among Exhibitor Magazine's 2021 Centers of Excellence, honoring 30 of North America's best convention centers for trade shows and events. The Centers of Excellence Awards recognize the best large and small trade show venues based on a variety of criteria within 5 different categories. The evaluation included a survey of our clients and was evaluated by an independent industry panel. Next slide, please. During this pandemic period, it is fair to say that our industry has been continuously evolving and adapting and will need to be nimble for the foreseeable future. Effective business events resumption involves ensuring our venues serve as a safe event space to host both business and public events. This requires resources, procedures, and best practices that will ensure public health, instill confidence, and when it is safe to reopen, will allow members of the public to safely re-engage in business events interactions. Establishing consumer confidence will be a critical element of our reopening. We created a 3-phase marketing campaign called See You Soon Safely at X Place, which is focused on safely reopening our convention centers for the client and attendee experience, and will be supported through digital marketing channels, public and media relations. Next slide, please. Our Safe Reopening Event Protocol outlines operational procedures for events at Exhibition Place, detailing the journey and experience of our attendees and clients from the moment they arrive at the Exhibition Place grounds to attend an event. We outline virus mitigation procedures related to PPE, signage, infection control, touchless payments, event floor plans, and attendee flow. We presented this document to Dr. Vinita Dubey at Toronto Public Health, who endorsed our plan and has been our advocate with the provincial health table. We have shared this plan with our clients and our convention center colleagues across Canada as the best practice of reopening protocols. Next slide, please. We developed a comprehensive assessment and procedure document for our own Exhibition Place employees in preparation for their return to the office. This document is supported by our infection alert protocols, a detailed response and multi-level communications plan should any of our employees test positive while working on site. Our infection alert protocol has been shared with our staff, tenants, and official on-site suppliers. Next slide, please. In April, as a direct response to the COVID virus, the International Sanitation Supply Association, in collaboration with the Global Biorisk Advisory Council, established GBAC STAR, a third-party accreditation program for infection control in public buildings, including airports, convention centers, hotels, schools, retail, restaurants, and offices. This international program is the gold standard and requires and relies on GBAC's comprehensive training, which teaches the proper protocols, correct disinfection techniques, and cleaning best practices for biohazard situations like the novel coronavirus. Accreditation is a rigorous process with 20 GBAC STAR program elements that must be completed to achieve certification. As an industry leader, Exhibition Place recognized the importance of the program and embarked on the GBAC STAR facility accreditation process in late spring. We were thrilled to be the first building of any kind in Canada to achieve the GBAC STAR. It is my pleasure to ask Matthew Buckles, Facility Coordinator, who with Paul Torkin spearheaded our internal GBAC committee to provide a short overview of the program. Matthew?
Yes, thank you, Laura. So I'm going to run through the 20 elements that the Global Biorisk Advisory Council evaluated Exhibition Place on and deemed appropriate for the cleaning, disinfection, and minimization of risk associated with biohazards and infectious agents like the novel coronavirus. Now, these 20 elements fit into one of 3 categories. The first category is program administration. Now, this encompasses the responsibilities of Exhibition Place's GBAC STAR Facility Committee and includes things like creating and enacting roles and responsibilities within the organization as it relates to the program, abiding by the facility's commitment statement, which sets the tone for the program as a whole, ensuring the program is both sustainable and constantly improving as we go and learn more about the way that we operate as an organization, tracking our compliance with both internal and external standards for cleaning and disinfection, setting goals and objectives for the program, as well as measuring our progress towards them, and then also ensuring there are appropriate control measures in place to properly administer the program. Next slide, please. The second group of criteria is our cleaning processes, and this area has everything to do with the way the facilities are being serviced by our housekeeping team. And this includes formalized standard operating procedures for all housekeeping tasks, high quality housekeeping materials, which includes tools and equipment, cleaning and disinfection chemicals, and personal protective equipment. It includes a waste management program and procedure for disposing of any potentially infectious agents, training programs for employees who are carrying out the cleaning and disinfection of our facilities, and then our facility infectious disease prevention practices, which summarizes all of the actions being taken to safeguard our facilities. This really is the heart of our program and really emphasizes the multidimensional approach wherein we have the right processes, the right materials, and the right people carrying out these duties. Next slide, please. Now, the last group of criteria is our management processes. This has a lot to do with how our management team oversees our staff, as well as some additional related safety procedures. So this includes how management and our security team in particular responds to an emergency situation on the grounds, how management has gone about assessing risks following the pandemic, or also following a confirmed positive case on site, how that is ultimately responded to, as well as how mitigation strategies are being put forward to counteract those risks in the long term. This also includes the specifics of the Exhibition Place Worker Health Program, how management goes about conducting inspections and audits of areas of the facility being used, the ways in which inventory suppliers are chosen based on our approved procurement practices, and subsequently how that inventory is controlled and managed on site. And then lastly, how all of our documents related to our GBAC Star Facility Program are updated and managed on a regular basis. Now, these are the 20 elements that we documented based on our current practices, as well as best practices from the wider industry. And like I said, GBAC awarded us this accreditation based on all of those items. Next slide, please. Now, the last thing we're going to run through is the elevator pitch that we're providing to all Exhibition Place employees. This should give you a sense of the key messaging our staff are being provided to speak about our program at the surface level, with ongoing support from myself should they require additional information. So with that being said, the GBAC Star Facility Accreditation is a third-party accreditation awarded to facilities that have demonstrated the ability to safeguard their facilities from infectious diseases through things like program administration, cleaning processes, and management processes. And the 4 Exhibition Place facilities that have received this accreditation include the Enercare Center, the Beanfield Center, the Better Living Center, and the Queen Elizabeth Exhibit Hall. Again, this is the type of messaging that our staff are being equipped with to be able to promote the program with potential and existing clients. And in my opinion, this is the program that really puts us in a strong position to hopefully regain clientele when the standards for the event industry permit.
Thank you, Matthew. We do know that to date, approximately 250 buildings have been accredited internationally, with over 1,000 more organizations in the approval process. Recently, our team have been consulted by other convention centers and organizations such as Live Nation on the GBAC Star program. Next slide, please. Exhibition Place is pleased to report that we have also received the Safe Travel Stamp designation from the World Travel and Tourism Council and Tourism Industry Association of Ontario for the hospitality and tourism sector. This specially designed stamp will allow travelers to recognize governments and companies around the world which have adopted globally standardized health and hygiene global protocols and will choose places that can display the Safe Travel Stamp. Next slide, please. The last 7 months have been extraordinary, stressful, challenging, and rewarding for the Exhibition Place team. I'm very proud of their relentless commitment to our tenants, clients, and attendees as they have prioritized the safe return to business through training, accreditations, teamwork, and communication. I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
1 second. My screen comes up. Is that you, Stephen?
Peter.
Peter, question? Go ahead.
And me too.
Yeah, okay.
To Laura Purdy, and Laura, thank you for this, and congratulations on the GBAC and the Safe Travel Stamp and all that you and your staff have done to keep Exhibition Place at the forefront for its customers as you rebook them. So that leads me into my question that I'd like to ask. How is this being received by by our people that we're approaching to come back and look for new business? And what is the results you're getting from this as you go out to talk to people about coming back to Exhibition Place when this crisis or this pandemic backs off and things get back to normal?
Through the chair, we have been constantly informing our clients of our process for GBAC. We have informed them as we were making the application and as we were awarded the GBAC accreditation. It has been very beneficial to us in, again, creating that customer confidence. I'll give you a great example. We currently have a major film studio that is working inside Enercare Center, and they were reluctant to come to our venue. They were reluctant to have any of our cleaning staff come on set until our facilities team sat with them and described the GBAC process and the accreditation and exactly what we entail to prevent infectious disease mitigation. And it was that decision, that GBAC standard, that allowed that film production company to proceed with their contract here at Exhibition Place. So this is early days, of course, and we are expecting that as we move forward and recover from the pandemic, having that GBAC standard and communicating the See You Soon Safely campaign will further reinforce that with our clients and attendees.
Lauren, to take that one step further, I know you're in touch with these people regularly and constantly back and forth, and that's good salesmanship and all of that, good practices. However, what is the reaction you're getting from people? Are they anxious to come back? Are they anxious to reinstate with Exhibition Place? Could you kind of give us your version, your vision of how that looks?
Through the chair, yes, our clients are very excited to come back. They recognize the value of face-to-face meetings. If anything, this pandemic has proved to us is that virtual is not the only way to go. We anticipate that there will be the addition of hybrid meetings, so you have a component where you can have a virtual component, but undoubtedly, face-to-face is the most important aspect of the meetings, conventions, and exhibitions business. So we have clients who are very eager to come back. They are, however, wanting to be safe. They want to make sure their exhibitors are safe. They want to make sure their attendees are safe. And that's why we've embarked on these accreditation programs to give them that reassurance and that comfort so that when it is safe to come back, we will be prepared.
So Laura, one step further, if I threw you, Mr. Chairman, one more. Today, One of a Kind has a full-page ad in today's paper about their show going virtual. Are they the type of client that's going to say to Exhibition Place, when this pandemic settles down, are we going to be back there, or is it going to be a hybrid, or is this a trend of what's to come? Your visions and your thoughts on that.
So it is true, the One of a Kind show for their Christmas show is going virtual. That was a decision made to continue to have the relationship with their artisans and to continue their brand. They are, however, very eager to come back to Exhibition Place, and in fact, do have dates with us in the spring of 2021 for the One of a Kind spring show. All of our clients have been very supportive of our organization and of our efforts, and we've been in communication with them on a weekly, sometimes daily basis throughout this pandemic to ensure that we are giving them the support that they need to move forward together.
Laura, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my questions. Just one last comment to you and your staff. Thank you for all you're doing to maintain our presence out there with the clients. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Holiday, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Birdie. I wondered if you could help me understand who the focal point is, or who has emerged as the focal point in Toronto to attract conventions and similar business back to the city. We're doing our part, right? We're a very important piece of the package as a meeting place. But it would seem to me that if you were an employer or somebody else organizing a trip for a group of people, you want to think about the whole package. Does the hotel have the biosecurity that you've talked about? Does the transportation system have it? Do we have safe places to go for our attendees to go at night when they seek entertainment? Is things open in the city? And I just wondered if organizations have emerged, or a single organization has emerged in the city that is driving all of that, and are we interfacing with them?
Through the chair to the deputy mayor, we have been very focused, as we talked about the industry task forces and the recovery task forces. Because the industry as a whole is quite disparate, we have the exhibition industry separate from the meetings and convention industry, separate from the filming industry. So we have actually embedded ourselves in every single industry on all of the recovery task forces. The other thing that we've been doing is working very closely with Toronto Economic Development and also the province through the Ministry of Tourism, and also Destination Toronto, which was formerly called Tourism Toronto. We have been liaising with all of those boards. In fact, I think I'm on 4 or 5 different recovery task forces across all of the industries, as well as our directors. So we have put ourselves forward as a part of that planning process. So we are, if anything, we've actually become more of a united force across the country and also provincially. So we feel very strongly that our efforts, while always have been very strong on the industry side, are even stronger now, so that we will be moving forward together. To your second question about the protocols and the GBAC standard moving forward, we endorse this, and this is why we've been doing some consultation with other companies who have been looking into the GBAC process. It is an onerous process, however, it is well worth it. So we are very open to consulting with other organizations who may also choose to move forward with GBAC, and we remain available to them.
Is there anything else as an organization or as a city that we could be doing to drive, I'm just going to call it the package, the visitor package, recognizing that it's beyond Exhibition Place, but there's value in it, right? We want to attract people to the city because we want them to feel safe coming here. And at the same time, we also want to recognize that we want to have visitors from faraway places into this city, probably before there's a vaccination available. And we want Torontonians to feel that the convention and visitor process and programs are of benefit to the city and don't pose additional risks. So it's two-sided, right? We want to have designs around these things to make sure that they're safe experiences for the visitors and vice versa. Is there anything else that could be done, or do you think that as you've stated here, these various planning tables are beginning to come together and we're headed to the right direction?
And through the chair, we have been, well, Toronto, first of all, is seen as a very responsible city as it relates to the trade show industry, exhibition industry, and the meetings and convention industry with respect to the approaches that we have taken on the public health realm. I am in touch on a weekly basis with a group of organizers and industry experts across North America, and we frequently are called to talk about the mitigation efforts that we are doing here in Toronto that's unlike what's happening south of the border. There are a number of factors that we need to have happen in order for us to resume our business in a fulsome manner. One of which is, of course, corporations having travel bans and eliminating those travel bans. That is going to be a long-term initiative, but one that we'll have to be working on together with our corporate colleagues. We also have to look at investigating different forms of technologies, and things like rapid testing is something that we are looking into at this point in time, together with the industry and for Exhibition Place as a whole, not unlike what you saw happen with the NHL bubble. Where there was frequent rapid testing. It has to be done in a manner that is affordable, that is achievable for mass testing, and something that is timely, because technology is changing rapidly in this field. And so we're working very closely with industry experts and health experts to try and see if this is an opportunity that we can move our industry forward with. it is very complex.
Thank you for that.
Any further questions of staff?
Mr. Chair, it's Tess.
Hey, Tess, how are you? Floor is yours.
Great. Great, thank you. So I just wanted to start by acknowledging and applauding this excellent presentation, Laura, Matthew, the team. I just really am so encouraged by the fact that you have started and are doing the GBAC accreditation process. I think it's excellent. My follow-up question was really just to ask Matthew or just how the staff have received this feedback in terms of, or at least the work that you're doing. I think it's just, it's incredible, especially coming from an industry, an organization in healthcare where accreditation is so key. I just think it's great, and I liked the elevator pitch. I just wanted to hear from you in terms of how staff are reacting to the great work that you're doing.
Thank you. I think, Matthew, if you could answer that question as it relates directly to your housekeeping staff and the ops staff.
Yeah, of course. And, kind of in the same, with that elevator pitch, it's something that we're providing to all departments on the grounds. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of our housekeeping team and our team here in the Facility Services Department. It is a real point of pride that it's something that we've been able to achieve. And also mainly in using the knowledge within the organization and really marrying that with some industry standard best practices from the wider cleaning and disinfection industry. So it really was call it a labor of love for a period of 4 months, but it has been really well received by both our housekeeping staff, but also within the other departments on our grounds, as hopefully the next step forward in bringing business back.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any further questions? Howard, I just saw your wife there. She any questions?
Yes, she wanted to tell me that my daughter baby checkup, because she's due in January, went well, and she thought I should know.
Very good. Okay, seeing no further questions. Any speakers to the item? Seeing none, I will just say, Don, Laura, and to the team, awesome, the GBAC accreditation. That's great work, and that is just awesome to hear. I think you heard it from the board, so please pass on congrats from the board to your team. Thank you very much. Okay, so we got a couple of housekeeping items.
Sure.
Sorry. Carol, Councillor Cressy's got some new business. I think will be 14.7. Could you just, before we go back to 4.2, could you just throw up his motion so people can have a chance to look at it and think about it for a second there?
Yeah, we'll put that on the screen right now.
Chair Grimes?
Yes.
Yeah, so just before we leave that one, it's real. I want to thank the staff for all their work on the GBAC and moving forward, but it really is to speak about Exhibition Place and what we have here being so different than so many others, where we're able to conduct business touchless, we're able to contact trace, we have the ventilation system that essentially filters the air and creates it almost like an outdoor opportunity. And we're able to time ticket participants. And so these are all the sort of differentiators that we're trying to get across with public health, that that in our exhibition business and the things that people are taking and really working hard at will be the differentiator to open, and not only with our clients or customers, but with the public health authorities is really critical. And we want to really thank Toronto Public Health and on their support to this point, and know that we want to be leaders in that area. And as Laura said, we're here to help others within our grounds, but also within our community when it comes to these standards and accreditations.
Great, Don. Thank you. Great work again. Awesome. Okay, Carol, you can throw Councillor Cressy's motion up there.
Mr. Chair, I think you still need a motion to receive this item for information.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll move receipt of the item. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Cressy's 14.7. We need to add that to the agenda. We just put up on the screen. So I'll just give you guys a second to read that. Everybody good? So I need a motion to add to the agenda. Moved by Councillor Cressy. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll come back to that in a minute. We'll go back to 14.2. Councillor Holiday has got his motion ready, I believe. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so we're back to the 2021 operating budget, and Councillor Holiday, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If I may ask the clerk to put it on the screen because I can't remember what it says, but it is essentially, I'll paraphrase it, it's to send a transmittal with item number 3, which is the budget. There we go. Just with a cover letter, just to let the city know that it's a preliminary status, that the zero-based change assumption that we make, and it is based on the city instructions. And finally, just to provide some comments that the board will be considering a revised budget in the coming months, which might have significant changes to it. I said material changes. And I felt it's important that we make sure that everybody is aware that changes are coming. Even though we all expect it through COVID, I think it should be put in writing. Thank you.
Councillor Holiday, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Clause amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving down to our last item, 14.7. Councillor Cressy promised me he'd be brief, so we'll put his motion back up. Councillor Cressy?
I will honor my promise, and just to say that this is for our CEO to review and report back on options the board has to ensure high quality jobs with hours, wages, and benefits as part of future projects. And with thanks to the chair for your stewardship on all this.
Okay, we good? Everybody good? All in favor? Opposed? Carried? And that's it, right, Carol?
That's all your business for today. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.